A pyramid in Sparta on the mountain Taygetus, and the first Greeks to land on planet Earth, according to claims and ancient texts. I've been to Taygetus. I've told you in one of my latest videos that I found garnet schist there, and I was trying to break the stones, slamming them into each other so that I can take the garnets, the semi-precious stones, out of there. Finally, I took rocks with me. They were pretty heavy as well, but I never took them to a jeweler to have them removed, so I just threw them away. Huge garnets in the garnet schist at the base of the mountain. Now, Taygetus is a high mountain in Sparta, but the ancient Greeks built a pyramid on top of that. Greeks, the first inhabitants of Earth. For those who don't know, in brief, the Greeks were the first to land on this planet called Earth. After they landed at Taygetus, they took measurements to identify the area, as the claims go. Thus, the Earth was inhabited for the first time on Mount Taygetus in the Peloponnese, where they tried to create a state, hence a philosophical stellar state, with a distribution of astronomers, who some observed the sun, others the moon, the lunarians, others galaxies, galaxiades, galatades, sometimes white suns or even Galatian suns. Originally, they had 88 star mystics, astronomers, who watched if their zodiac was moving. Each astral mystic also had an assistant who followed respectively B, C, D, etc. stars of the zodiac. Their goal was to find the most star of the zodiac will be immobilized. Initially, in the 88 zodiacs, whose course of the stars was 12,775 years. The average phenomenon of presentation of the zodiacal tenuis, hence 12,775 divided by 88 equals 145.17045. Thus, the phenomenon that would take the oracle through planetary travel occurred every 145 years, where it could be reduced to 120 years based on special conditions. So from every mountaintop where the sacred shadow descended, where the concept of holiness remains as the point of sacred remembrance, to the descendants of the first Greek colonists of Gaia, Earth, who came from another planet, a part of the universe, and during the midday hours in an open environment to enable the sun and the heavenly bodies to oversee and observe the sacred site as a place of worship. So every mountain forms a peak. Thus, each sanctuary or sanctuaries or locations from which the Talaton peak was visible also has an individual code, which was determined by the intersection of two factors, hence the angle of height and the angle of rotation. When the angle of elevation of the heavenly body coincides with the angle of elevation of the sanctuary, and the angle of rotation of the same body with the angle of rotation of the sanctuary at the same time, then there is worship and celebration in the sanctuary. The escaping ray of the heavenly body escapes from the holy pinnacle and strikes the sanctuary. From the sanctuary, the heavenly body appears to rest on top with an eccentricity, so it sees the point of the sanctuary and any worships if they were taking place. But when it did not sit eccentrically, hence a point of solar disk was on the top, then it was said that it aimed at the point of the sanctuary or through the sacred arrow. From the Talaton peak, which etymologically means balancing pairs of spaceship disks on which the airport is located, it will move due north if the star is north, or due south if the star is south. The reason they built the Thalaton or Taygetus space vehicle, which ran at high speed to find through the star spot, that is, it had to pass directly under the star, and determine the chrysostome for the Earth to tend the Tatus, Taygetus, to expand the Earth. This spaceship was departing from a star oracle around the world after first receiving an oracle from Talaton, where Pausanias tells us in the verse, Akra te Taygetu Talaton, in favor of Vircians, tolerates this he calls the sanctuary of the sun. That is the sanctuary of Helios, called Talaton, from Talaton, totter, or move back and forth, swinging in Talaton, yokes and scales. But the main concern of the service was, you will be fixed. Of course, the results of the codes differ from place to place because each location had a different sacred peak. The code, as an astronomical formula, contains the northing and easting Greenwich latitudes of the vertex in radians and therefore has uniqueness. The uniqueness it contains gives different results from top to top. In order for a place to be recognized and to receive the code, it was necessary to have a contemplative point of inspiration near the toponym which emits the oracle on the primary holy toponym, so the toponym sanctuary becomes a receiver of the heavenly body of the sun, the moon, or the stars. Thus, according to this philosophy, the sharp geometric shape which gave an oracle of visibility, hence the point from which the heavenly body can be seen, was simply called a term. This point, the sharp point of the term, was considered as the point where the pupil rested or touched, hence the hard point of the deity's eye, and was called from this phenomenon the touch point of the pupil and by extension the apex. Thus the place of the state which creates this phenomenon of the personality of the sun under the name El, but also of the subject of the sacred stone under the meaning of the geological form called La, so that this region of the state or state called it Ela or Elas, from El and Las meaning giving us Elas, the name of Greece. These two subjects have the direct purpose of identifying a holy point on earth. Called Da, then Da became Ra, which is also the smallest word of the Greek alphabet, where all the 4 points of Yea symbolize the trident of Poseidon, trident because it had 3 prongs. Thus, these 3 compositions of sun, stone, and earth compose a philosophical toponym, but also the broader one in the concept of state called Greece, Hellas. That is Greece in part of the earth, which serves the interests of El, because it offers with it its geological form La, peaks, hence peaks, for determining the point of the earth, Da, which became Ya. Now, in the full etymological and philosophical sense of the word Greece, it's a location with a concentration of stony mountains. So these stony mountains at their summits create pyramids. A pyramid, pyramis, is called a place of the shadow that comes from the sharp mountain or sharp geometric shape, when of course the shadow is created by the sun. Etymologically, pyramis is pira orao oro, meaning I see the burning sun, body of the sun. Thus, these 3 characteristics, names of the sun, stone, and earth, which identify the Greek who have been born from the sun, where the sun gives us heat, life, and light. The first dominant race to be colonized was the Pelasgians, who came from Pella, which means stone, together with the verb ago. That is, in the philosophical sense, I am led by a stone or by a mountain, and create a culture around it. Thus, the Pelasgi create civilizations around the mountains, which have sharp peaks. Because most of these peaks were located in Eastern Europe, and combined with this knowledge they had worshipping the sun, the moon, and the heavenly bodies, they were called Greeks. In other words, the Pelasgians had as a philosophical principle the course and worship of the sun. So they created civilizations around the peaks. They developed sacred coordinates, that is, fixed points to which they gave names according to the phases of the heavenly bodies. Taygetus and his mysteries. So each tribe got its name from the jobs it did, such as the Egyptians, Aeolians, who believed in the capture of the sun by the eagle, who captured and lifts boats, and in this way are called Egyptians, Egypt, meaning flight, to the region of Egypt. The Aeolians were a special branch of gliders. The Dorians were tall, capable men who had a specialty in placing stakes or spears in places, indicating to them by the other tribes, and mainly the Assyrians and Heraclides. Driopes had the ability to drill holes in hardwoods and logs to make wooden tools, etc. The Achaeans, this is where Achilles was from, the Achaeans lived on chaos, that is, on a place lacking coordinates. That is, they were the race that, after a great catastrophic event, they had as their mission to save others. The Ionians lived on the islands, that's the islands between Greece and Italy. The Ionians lived on the islands and observed Iona, the sacred bird which moves to Nisa of Mani. The Ionians watched the omens of the universe, etc. The Chaldeans dealt with metals and especially with the noble one, copper. The Babylonians got their name from desecration, meaning destruction, and their mission was, when a temple was built wrongly, they destroyed it like demolition crews do today. The Assyrians, or Syrians, were an astronomical race together with the Pelasgians, who were used as auxiliaries. That is, when the Dorians set the stakes on the ground, they supervised their settings in order so that they were in a straight line or row. The Heracles, from Hercules, cooperated with the Dorians and Syrians for the drawing and measuring of the land. They had tripods on which were placed the hourglasses, that is, cylindrical glass containers that measured the time. The sun worshippers, as residents of the area near Taygetus, where the pyramid was, had already developed the science of observing the sun plate. So far, measurements in thousands of years, after measurements in thousands of years, they began to expand and go across the earth. First, they moved north, which was easier. The mystics knew well the time required from the meridian to the other, where they were permanently upon the oracle of Taygetus. The group of Mysterians consisted of shadow time benders, balancers, shadow mark watchers. At the appointed moment when the last drop of the hourglass marked the solar meridian, the initiator signaled by waving the flag to the others. The squirrels remotely indicated to the markers the exact shadow point of the spear tip to the ground. The markers would mark the exact point of the shadow indication and then make a comparative measurement of the length of unstretched thread or screw attached to the upper end of the spear. Then they marched north to determine the stake and performed the same actions, but without losing the solar hourglass time. This meant that when the last drop of the hourglass was determined, the solar meridian rotating for the next determination of the next solar measurement imagery straight north of the oracle. This method was called the descent of the Dorians, and this because with their removal to the north, the sun god had a descent, that is, the shadow grew. To understand this in this way, after they started from Taygetus, as number one, they went up north, and the mysteries named the sacred place Sun 2, the current one Dion, where also the lamp is Olympus, since the point of the sacred mountain when the sun falls, holy arrow of winter, this shines. Only then did they realize that the angle was very small compared to the original angle of the oracle on the top of Taygetus, and the shadow also was greater, and thus they understood that they were far from the sacred motherland of Taygetus, and they exclaimed, Makeda, distant land, and that thus it was simply called Macedonia. Europe got its name from the name of the measuring device, which measures the width of the shadow hole and determined distance at points, and thus it was named Europe, Evropi. With the determination and measurement applied by the first alien Greeks, they invented various methods, and at the beginning they called the wider area Europe, Evropi. This compound word includes the nouns range and whole. Into the whole enters the sacred light of the sun, which creates a range. That is, Europa is a measuring device of a fixed place, a huge right-angled triangle which has a hole through which the sacred light of the sun passes. The holy light, as it fell upon the corner created by the resolution of light on a circle of narrow ellipsoidal form of light, which had a span in its middle, and according to the legend, the sacred bull chariot proceeding north opened the sacred hole, which gained a greater width. In this way, he reached an area where the holy light was gaining scope. This sacred area will be called Evria, and by corruption, Serbia. Continually, the sacred course and measuring distances, they reached a point where the sun's zenith is located. Hence, the sun accepts a universal inclination, and the area will be called Germania, Germany. Concluding the march to the sacred pole of its transition, the region will be called Poland, from the sacred pole, Polos. After they reach the final point where Europe can no longer be measured, there they place a sacred stone as the determining point of the sun, and it will be called Lithuania, and the extension of the sacred area will be called Latonia, Latvia. Now in this map you'll notice that Greece is basically at the 4 to 5 o'clock position here on this map. Now, that is the Latvia, the sacred chariot with the bull, and with the wisdom of the width of the shadow of the light, determines in a straight line north-south starting from the center of the world the nomenclature of the places. Because beyond Latonia, where from there on the region reigns darkness and abomination, because the path remains impassable, because the darkness and the cold climate and the snows, this place is called Scandinavia, precisely from the darkness of the Da earth, which prevails from the diffusion of light and darkness. In a similar way, the rest of the denominations were named as Arabia or Avaria, where they named this place, were during the summer solstice where there is no shadow, hence the sun is perpendicular to the place. It's called Avaria because the sun, due to its quality as avarice, is at a great height. In a few words, the first inhabitants of the planet Earth, in order to gain complete knowledge of the place and applying the perfect measure, used the uses which were essentially topographical studies and applications that determined the points where the sacred would be. Now, Africa got its name because of the point of the Earth which received a higher temperature and on which, according to the philosophy of the mysteries, the water in this place reaches the boiling point, created foam, that is Afrika, Afro, meaning foam in Greek, Afrika. Africa is foam of the water. Now, Australia and Asia etymologically got their names from the temporary quality that the sun's rays had, hence the vertical fall of the sun's rays as Australia and Asia were located at 23rd south and north. Australia comes from the poetic Avstaleos, which means sunburn, hence directly heated, while Asia is also heated by solar rays of the northern hemisphere and comes from the verb azo or aza, with etymological meaning of sunburn. Brazil, also where a part of it reaches a boiling point from the heat it receives from the sun, and was named Brasilia, Vrazo, meaning it boils. Now, America, part of which is unmerited, hence the stars of the sky do not have a part, and the place cannot be determined from the property of the stars of the universe. Thus, Amerita became America. They called it Amerita, that it didn't have a place, a part of property of the stars of the universe. Thus, Amerita became America. The stages got their names in the same way. So this is by Elianos Iphigeniis. I've translated this from a Greek article for you. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.